Hello everybody, it is John here from the Esports department, and we are going over the LEC rosters, power rankings, futures. This will be a lot shorter than the LPL one probably, a little bit less changes, less teams. But Europe's going to be interesting this split, and let's talk about why we may or may not want to bet various teams and have a look at what's going on. So the first roster, we've got Astralis. There'll be White Knight in the top lane. White Knight coming over from Big. We've seen him in the LEC before, but this is his coming back up from Big at the EU Masters level. Zanzara coming over from a Go Rogue. And a Go Rogue is a team you're going to hear mentioned a lot. I'm pretty sure 5 out of 5. Did all their players get picked up? Not their 80 carry, maybe. I think everybody else is in the league now. Nuke Duck in the mid lane. Jeskla and Promiscu coming through in the bot lane. So what this team has done is basically built around Nuke Duck, which I think is a pretty bad idea, aside from the fact that Nuke Duck will provide a veteran presence who's been around for a long time. But it's been a few splits since I was even remotely impressed with Nuke Duck. I think Zanzara is a good pickup. All those rogue guys looked fantastic the last couple runs through EU Masters. White Knight, I'm not insanely impressed with. Jeskla and Promiscu, I think we've seen Promiscu in the LEC before, and he was acceptable. Jeskla, I think, is a lower tier 80 carry as far as the rest of the league is concerned. We just have some very strong 80 carries in Europe, so it's not necessarily a knock on him. But this is not a super impressive team to me. I don't see a superstar that's going to stand out in this roster. I think you got a couple guys in White Knight and Jeskla that are probably going to be bottom half of the league. Nuke Duck, if he can return to form, he can be a top half mid laner in this league, but I'm guessing you're going to see him down there as well. So it leaves you with kind of Zanzara and Promiscu as like your two best players, and that's probably, for me, not good enough to be in any sort of competition in the LEC this split. Moving over to XL, they keep Kryze in the top lane. Kryze, last split, he plays a lot more of the carry top laners, guys that can take over in the late game sometimes. I really like Kryze as a player, and I think he helps you with that three-pronged, three-attack approach that I was talking about with FPX in the LPL video yesterday. This is a team that's probably going to be able to carry from any lane, and I like seeing that. They pick up Dan from Fnatic Rising to go in the jungle. Dan, pretty good. Not one of the most impressive pickups, I thought, from the EU Masters squads, but not a bad pickup. I think Dan's a solid player who's going to be right in the middle of the league somewhere, probably. In the mid lane, they get Chekolad from a Go Rogue. So Chekolad, I think, is maybe my number one, could be a super stud player coming up from EU Masters. I really, really like Chekolad. I think he's very, very good. He's shown a variety of picks and played against a variety of mid laners. He had to play against, players like Leader, but also got to play against people like Magifelix. So he's shown that he's capable of playing against a lot of different styles, and I think he's definitely capable of being a mid lane carry for this team. And they keep Patrick and Torre in the bot lane. So I think Patrick and Torre is a good bot lane. Kryze is a capable and carry, like, top laner that's capable of carrying sometimes. And I think Chekolad is a five-tool player as well. So this is a great roster for me, and a great rebuild. You're mostly pretty young guys here, mostly guys that are probably not too expensive coming up from EU Masters. Patrick and Torre obviously have been around for a little while, but this is a very strong team for me. I think this is one of the highest ceiling teams that we have. They're still a rebuild team, but I think they're one of the highest ceiling rebuild teams that we have for sure. Going over to Schalke, we get Broken Blade coming back from the LCS, done with his time on TSM. He's going to join Gilius and Abadage and Neon, who were the core of this team last split, and then they add Limit from SK Gaming. There's been a lot of debate about whether Limit or Crown Shot was really the power in the SK Gaming bot lane, or whether it was some mix of both of those two players. But I think it's safe to say that Limit should be at least solid in this role. And Broken Blade should be a fairly good player as well. I mean, he's played multiple splits at the top level and looked fine. The worry for me with Schalke is I'm not sure that the core that they kept was really that valuable. Gilius, we've seen a number of times. He's always been acceptable. I'm not going to do crap on Gilius. He's always been an acceptable jungler in the league, but never been that exciting. Abadage has been back and forth between being one of the best mid laners in the league and one of the worst, and it's really hard to tell exactly what you're going to get from him. And I think Neon is a more bottom of the table 80 carry. So you're getting a bottom of the table 80 carry, a mid or below jungler in Gilius, a mid or slightly above support in Limit, a middle, maybe slightly above top laner in Broken Blade, and who knows what we're getting out of Abadage. So, not insanely exciting, but not a terrible roster. I don't think they have winning the league upside. I think for the Miracle run, I think Otawamne was a pretty decent-sized part of that, and you're not going to see him this time around. Broken Blade and Otawamne, very different kinds of players. I think Broken Blade would prefer to be on a team that has individual skills, the sort of carry from 3 lanes type stuff I was talking about with Excel, whereas Otawamne is more of a team fighter, more than the sum of our parts type player. And so we're putting Broken Blade on a team here where he wants to have carry potential from all 3 lanes, and I don't think this team does. At most, they have carry potential from 2. I don't think the bottom lane is ever just going to go off, so Abadage and Broken Blade maybe. Not super exciting, but not the worst roster from Schalke there. Over to Fnatic. They keep Whippo, they keep Selfmade. I think that's actually the most important duo of this team. People talked about Reckless as being one of the cores of this team, and I think that's true, but I think Selfmade and Whippo actually, for me, are the important parts of Fnatic. They keep those around. They pick up Niski coming back from Cloud9. I'm not worried about Niski. I think he's going to be just fine in the league. He was great on Splice when he was on Splice, and I think he's going to continue to be good. Upset and Hylissang is a bot lane that worries me a little bit. Obviously, Upset has shown us flashes in the past of being arguably the best AD carry in the league. Hylissang has a style that's a little tough to get used to, and I don't necessarily think that Upset is really, at least in his previous roles, he hasn't been one of those take over the game from lane type players, and I'm a little bit worried that Upset and Hylissang are not going to get along that well as far as just play styles, not necessarily personalities, but play styles. I wouldn't be surprised if you see this team looking for a new support next split, just because the bot lane, maybe the synergy is not there. But this is a good team. Obviously, Fnatic, you have Whippo and Selfmade, arguably the best jungler in the league in Selfmade. Whippo, one of the best top laners in the league, although he can go one way or another. A top 3-4 mid laner in the league with Niski, a top 4 AD carry in the league with Upset, and then Hylissang I think is kind of league average just based on his ups and downs of the way that he plays. If you can gel perfectly with him, he's probably a top 3 or 4 support in the league. But if you're not gelling with him, I could see him, coming off as a not top 4 support in the league just from that. But still, this is a great team, obviously. G2 Esports. A lot of talk about this team in the offseason. They keep Wonder, Yankos. Caps moves back to, or continues being in the mid lane. Moves back to the mid lane. And Mickey X stays as support. Reckless gets added as AD carry. So 4 of the same 5 players, with Caps being the mid laner and Reckless coming to AD carry. Obviously, this team is excellent. The problem only comes with whether or not Reckless is going to be able to fit in with the style that the other 4 members of this team play. I think that's really the only question mark, and it's not that big of a question mark. I think clearly this is the best roster, and they have to be your favorites going into LEC 2021. I don't think there's really a ton to talk about with this team. It's really the only thing that can really go wrong with this team. Well, the only obvious thing that can go wrong is Reckless not really gelling well with how Caps and Mickey and Yankos want to play the earlier games. There's some other things that can go wrong that we'll talk about maybe in a little bit, but I think obviously it's a LEC winning roster a decent percentage of the time. Going over to the Mad Lions. So they lose Arome and Shadow. They keep their bot half core, so Humanoid, Karzi, and Kaiser are all returning. The 2 new players coming in the jungle and top lane, Armut, coming from Supermassive in Turkey. Armut's been on the world stage before. He's a very good player, and I think this is an exciting pickup for them. It's definitely an upgrade from Arome, and I think that's just a pure plus for this team. Now, Elyoya coming in the jungle, this was the interesting part to me, because Shadow, I thought you would keep Shadow if you could for sure as this Mad Lions team, but they decided to move away from him. I don't know if it was a personality thing. I don't know if his Worlds performance being an underperformance was that big of a deal for them. I don't know exactly what caused it, but they pick up Elyoya. Elyoya's probably a downgrade, could be a side grade. Elyoya from Movistar Riders at the EU Masters level, he was very good at EU Masters. It's hard to tell if he's going to end up being maybe a slight downgrade or about a side grade. I don't think you're going to get a pure upgrade out of him, but I also don't think you're getting a major downgrade. He's either going to be a slight downgrade or a side grade, I think, from Shadow, assuming he, finds his way in the LEC here, because EU Masters and the LEC are definitely not the exact same tournament. For me, this roster is probably a net upgrade. I think Armut is really good, and replacing Arome will be an upgrade for them, and then Elyoya, I never really know exactly what's going to happen with the replacement of Shadow there. But I think this is an upgrade. I think this is a very aggressive team. Elyoya is an aggressive jungler. Armut plays very aggressively in the top lane, and he comes in with Humanoid, Karzi, and Kaiser, who were already a very aggressive core. I like this team. I like the upside on this team a lot. I think this team has league-winning upside if things go their way, similar to XL, who I think also, if things go perfectly for them, has some league-winning upside. Let's move over to Misfits. In the top lane for Misfits, they have Agresivo, who comes over from Misfits Premier. Not somebody I was super excited about in EU Masters, but he was, solid at the EU Masters level. We'll see if he can continue to be solid at the LEC level. I don't think you're getting a superstar there for sure. They get Hirit from 1907 Fenerbahce in Turkey. Hirit, a bit coin flippy for me, a bit upside downside, but I think he could be an upgrade. I'm not sure who they're going to end up playing. I would think they'll start the season with Hirit, and we might see Agresivo as the season goes on, but it's hard to say exactly what they're going to do with that. In the jungle, they keep Razork. They have Kabe and Denik in the bottom lane still, along with Vander, who they picked up from Rogue. Vander may be going to come in and start for the team. If I'm guessing Vander starts. And then in the mid lane, Vitheo from LDLC. Vitheo, a good player. I think he did a lot of work for LDLC. I'm not as excited about him as I am about Chekolad, but he's a good pickup, someone who was impressive at the EU Masters level. You got a team on the rebuild here. It's a little wonky. It's a little all over the place. You have Razork, who is their young stud prospect. You have Kabe, who's a bit of the old guard. If they start Vander, you're dealing with the really old guard there, and then young guy and Vitheo. Doesn't really seem like a team that's going to compete, and it seems to me like they could have gone further into the rebuild and maybe not gotten Vander and continued with Denik, or if they don't like Denik, maybe get a different support to replace there. And Agresivo and Hirit, I think Hirit maybe has a little bit more of the upside, but I'm not sure I see like a possible future stud in the top lane either. So like prospects, I want somebody who has the potential to be a future stud. I'm not necessarily sure I see that either. Hirit, possibly. So not super impressed with Misfits. Their strategy for the rebuild seems a little wonky to me, but we'll see how it goes. Over on Rogue, they keep Inspired, Larson, and Hansama, the three core players coming back. They change the support. Vander goes over to Misfits, so they pick up Trimby from a Go Rogue. Trimby was solid. I didn't think he was a focal point of a Go Rogue or somebody that was blowing my mind, but I think he's acceptable. Giving him a shot in the LEC seems fine. And then they get Odo Omne from Schalke. I think this team is the one that is most likely to take a big step back this season. I personally, and I know that some people on the Gold Card podcast disagree with me, but that's why we have multiple different kinds of content. I personally think Inspired was a little overrated last year. I think Hansama is kind of a run-of-the-mill league average 80 carry. I think Trimby will end up being somewhere around a league average support. So what you're left with is Odo Omne, who I think is not fantastic, but a guy who really is good at helping he's very good at being well positioned for team fights and really helping his team win team fights. He plays the right champion pool for it. I think he's a guy that really helps your synergy, helps you get a more than the sum of our parts type attitude on your team because of how well he helps the team fight, and that's great. Not mechanically over the top, though, for me. He's not just going to come out there and shy a bad matchup or whatever. Larson is their stud, and I thought last year he was pretty close to Cap's level as far as mid lane studliness in the LEC. The problem for me is I think Rogue needs that. I think if Larson is not doing that, it's very bad news. I think they need Larson to be doing that, and if he does that, then they're maybe a top 4 team. And I think if he regresses at all and doesn't play to that level, then I don't think you're looking at a top 4 team here. So Rogue is my is kind of my big question mark, I would say. I have them probably rated a little lower than some other people, but I think you're going to see some regression from Rogue this year, personally. Moving over to SK Gaming, Genax in the top lane. I liked Genax last season. I thought he was very good, so I'm happy about that. Tinks coming up from LDLC. Happy to see Tinks get a shot. He's the best, the top 3 EU Masters players of all time, and has done it at multiple EU Masters and been exceptional at multiple EU Masters. Happy to see him getting a shot. Blue comes over from 1907 Fenerbahce. Upside, I think Blue has good upside. I'm not sure that right now he looks like a stud LEC mid laner to me, but I think there's upside there. Then in the bot lane, they get Treats back from TSM. Not that impressed with Treats. I think he's going to be a below average league support. And Jezu comes over from Misfits Premier in the EU Masters, another player that I'm not really that excited about. So I think they've brought over 2 people I think are going to be bottom half of the league players. Somebody who I think is probably bottom half of the league with upside in Blue. I think he could end up being a top 4 or top 5 mid laner in the league if he's progressed a little bit in the offseason. Genax I just like in general. I think he's probably just slightly above average top laner. And then you get Tinks, who I think has a lot of potential to be a real superstar in the league. So not an exciting roster, but it's something. They've got some stuff here. They've got some upside players. I would like to see them probably, unless things change this season and players are a little different, I'd like to see them change probably support and AD carry next season and move with this Blue Tinks Genax core. I think that would be most likely progression for me. And the last team in the league, Team Vitality. 4 people are going to be the same: Labrov, Comp, Milica, and Skeens. The person they added is Shigenda, who's the top laner from Ago Rogue. Once again, the whole Ago Rogue roster was just pretty fantastic over the last couple of EU Masters, so no surprise here that they end up all pretty much moving up to the Premier level. I think this roster in general has good upside. We talked about this a lot on the Gold Card podcast, but you're looking at 4 guys who were all pretty young in Labrov, Comp, Milica, Skeens, new to the pro scene. All of them now have stayed together, had an off-season together to improve their teamwork and continue getting better together. And then they add Shigenda, who's another good upside rookie. I like this team quite a bit. I'm not sure I think they have league winning capability, but I like this rebuild. They've kind of gone and changed players where they needed to. They changed most of the roster last year. They had to lose Cabochard. I'm not sure what happened there to have Cabochard end up getting let go. But Shigenda's a decent replacement for Cabochard, and I think this is a good roster with some upside. Let's look at where I power ranked these teams. So for me, I put it into tiers here as well. I think G2 is your definitive number 1 team in the league. I think that's hard to argue against. They've been the best team in the league for a while now. And all they've done here is probably side grade by trading out perks for Reckless. I think it's hard to argue that they're not the best team in the league. In the second tier, Fnatic and Mad Lions. So comparing Fnatic and Mad Lions, I think Bwipo's your better top laner, Selfmade's your better jungler. Humanoid probably gets the edge in the mid lane, and then I actually think Karzi and Kaiser are better than Upset and Hylissang, but I think the gaps on the Mad Lion side are smaller than the gaps between Selfmade and Elyoya and Bwipo and Armit. I think those are the bigger gaps. So these teams are pretty close for me. I think Mad Lions and Fnatic both reasonable chance to win the league if things go their way. In the next tier down, I have XL and Rogue, and I actually had XL above Rogue. I expect to see that upgrade from XL with Checolad and Dan. I think we're going to see regression from Rogue, like I talked about, and so I see them dropping down here. My next tier here is kind of the rebuilds with upside and how much upside do they have. I think Vitality did the best job. I like where they're at with bringing the 4 players back, and I think Shigenda is a good addition. Then we go to Schalke in 7th place. I think Schalke is probably going to fall down into a continued rebuild. I don't think this is probably a lineup that's going to stick with them for a while. Misfits in 8th place. I think their rebuild is just going poorly, and I'm not very excited about it. And then the worst 2 teams, I think SK Gaming comes in second worst for me. I don't like the bot lane. I'd like to see them replace the bot lane and try something new. I'm not super hyped on Blue, although I think he could be solid. And Gen X and Tinks, I think, is the strength of the team. And Tinks, we'll have to see if he can translate it to the LEC level. He was a stud in EU Masters, but I'm going to have to see it. 10th place, I have Astralis. I just don't really like anything going on with this team. I think they have a bottom of the league average bot lane, bottom of the league average mid lane, bottom of the league average top laner. Zenzara, really the only spot where they might have a shot, and he's a rookie. I mean, Promise Q is pretty good, but when you pair him with Jeskla, I just don't think those two together is really competing with many of the other bot lanes in the league. I think Astralis is probably your 10th place team. So how does that compare to how Bovada has the futures laid out? Bovada has G2 at minus 250. That's unbettable, man. Please don't bet that. Please do not bet Bovada a G2 at minus 250. That is just an unbettable number. At even money, I have bet G2 before, and I think it was the right thing to do. In previous splits, when the talent was a little bit more dispersed, you could even bet them maybe as like a very small favorite to win the league, but minus 250 is a huge number. You just cannot mess with it all. Fnatic at plus 500, kind of interesting. 500 might be a little too low, because even if G2, so G2 is going to win the league more often than anyone else, and when they don't, there's a lot of teams here that really could be competing. I think, personally for me, I think Mad Lions, XL, Fnatic, I think all those teams are capable, maybe even of Vitality, of popping up and doing something. So I don't know that I want to take 5-1, given that G2 is probably going to win the league 3 out of 5 times, or somewhere right in there, 2.5 out of 5 times. And then the other 2.5 or 2 out of 5 times that they don't, you have some other good teams in here that could maybe be winning other than Fnatic. So I don't think 500 is probably good enough on Fnatic. Rogue comes in at 700. Obviously, I'm probably not messing with that, given that I think Rogue is a lower ranked team than Bovada does. I don't put them anywhere close to having the same chance to win the league as Fnatic. Mad Lions is where you start to get interesting to me at 900. Mad Lions is the team that I had ranked 3rd, and when I did my percentages on the Gold Card podcast, I had them about 2% lower than Fnatic to win the league, and you're getting plus 900 instead of plus 500, so I like Mad Lions. That's one of my only bets I would be considering from the LEC. Schalke plus 2,500. I didn't bother with Schalke. I don't think they're going to be competing this year. XL at plus 3,500. I took a dip in the pool at 3,500. I do think XL is the least likely of my top 4 teams to win the league, but still least likely of the top 4 is still going to do better than 35-1. So I went ahead and dipped my toe in the pool there. At the bottom, SK Gaming at 5,000. I'm not messing with that one. Vitality at 5,000. If you wanted to dip a toe in the pool of plus 5,000 for Vitality, I wouldn't hate it, but I have not done that. I still think probably a little bit higher than the odds that I gave them in my Gold Card podcast percentage rankings. Misfits at 6,600. No thanks. I don't think Misfits or Astralis are going to be interesting to me. Now, there is something I wanted to talk about here, and I should have talked about it more in the LPL video, but at least I can bring it out now. You're not betting on this team to be the best team in the LEC. It's not what you're betting on. You're betting on who is going to win the championship. And those are different things, because if you asked me how likely XL was to be the best team in the LEC, I think their chances to do that and their chances to win are significantly different. I think there's an extremely good chance that the best team in the LEC is G2, Fnatic, or Mad Lions. I think 95% of the time, one of those 3 teams is going to be the best team in the league. But some of these other teams, all it's going to take is 2 series in the playoffs, where the metagame shifts a little bit, and maybe Jankos isn't on comfort, and somebody from XL has somebody in the meta that they like, and they just outdraft somebody. It's going to take these teams are going to be in the running. XL is going to be there with 6 teams left in the playoffs, 4 teams left in the playoffs. Mad Lions is going to be there with 4 teams left in the playoffs. And all they're going to have to do is win a couple series. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they end up being a better team than G2. We saw Mad Lions beat G2 in the playoffs last year, when G2 was clearly the better team. That's all we're betting on here. We're not betting on them to be the best team in the league. And that's part of the reason also why you can't take G2 at minus 250. G2 might be minus 250 to be the best team in the league, but it's not that hard to get outdrafted in a couple playoff games, or Reckless has a tough day, or Jankos is off comfort, and one of these other teams takes you out of the playoffs. So you're betting on them. Just remember, you're not betting on them to be the best team. You're betting on them to win the championship, and those are different things. Going over to comparison rankings, this is just where Bovada had this team ranked odds-wise. versus where I have them ranked. So G2 and Fnatic, we both have them 1 and 2. Mad Lions, they have them 4 and I have them 3, so we get some advantage there. XL, I have them 4, they have them 6th, so that's like one of your better value plays there. Rogue, they have them 3rd and I have them 5th, so -2 for me. Makes me want to stay far away from there. Vitality, I have them 2 spots higher, so it's another spot like Excel where I was willing to look at. Schalke, I have them 2 spots lower, so I'm not interested at all there. I do have Misfits 1 spot higher, but not enough to convince me they have any sort of shot of actually winning the title this year. SK Gaming, I have them 2 spots lower than Bovada, so I'm not interested at all. And Astralis is a 0. We both have them 10th. So obviously, like I said, this is not scientific. What you really want to be doing with your modeling is getting an actual percentage chance that you think these teams are going to win and comparing it to the implied odds from Bovada, making sure that the cap hold or the hold from Bovada doesn't invalidate the bet that you want to make, and make sure that the edge is big enough that you want to tie up your money for a split. Oftentimes, futures not necessarily the greatest value, but I do like to mess with futures. Vitality and XL, the 2 spots that really kind of stood out to me as maybe having a shot. Mad Lions as well. But XL was my favorite value on the board. It's kind of like in the LPL, how RNG, I don't think they're close to being the favorite to win the league, but the odds on them are just so much better than the other teams that are contenders that I think it's just really clear that they're one of the better bets. Same with XL. I don't think they're a big favorite to win the league at all, but they're by far the best odds of the teams that I have with a chance to win the league. Mad Lions comes in kind of second there, and then Vitality, if you're going to throw a toe in the pool. I'd rather, if you can only bet like 2 units or whatever, I'd rather bet both of them on XL than bet 1 and 1 on them and Vitality. I think XL has a much better chance. But if you have a little extra, quarter unit or whatever to throw out there on Vitality just to have you end up with profit, if they end up winning, I think that's a decent spot to find your money. So there we go, guys. That's going to be my LEC breakdown and what I think about the LEC this split. I will be back to do LCS at some point and LCK at some point and have some opinions there as well. Hopefully this is a little bit slightly useful for people, and welcome back to the LEC, man. It's going to be fun. I'll talk to you guys later.